The story opens with Chelsea, a real estate inspector who evaluates properties for a living and works for a bank. Her job often takes her to different places, and this time, it's brought her all the way from America to London. When she arrives, she's picked up by a bank employee. Together, they're heading out to inspect an old castle that the bank is hoping to sell. During the drive, Chelsea seems visibly sad and withdrawn. The woman driving her notices this and gently asks what's wrong. Chelsea has just gone through a breakup with her partner, Nick. Originally, Nick was supposed to join her on this work trip, but at the last moment, he backed out, something that's happened more than once before. Tired of being let down, Chelsea ended the relationship. But now, even as she's trying to move forward, Nick keeps calling her to apologize, making it even harder for her to process her feelings. Soon they arrive at the castle. It's a breathtakingly beautiful and massive old estate, shrouded in history and mystery. After some initial paperwork and formalities, Chelsea prepares to stay at the castle for her inspection. The bank employee introduces her to Quinn, the caretaker who lives nearby and is responsible for the property's upkeep. Once settled in, Chelsea starts exploring the house and unpacking her belongings. Despite trying to focus on her work, her phone keeps lighting up with calls from Nick, which she pointedly ignores. As she looks around, she begins to realize why the castle hasn't sold in so many years. There are rumors swirling that the place is haunted, which have scared off every potential buyer so far. Now curious about her surroundings, Chelsea decides to explore the castle further. She eventually makes her way down to the basement, a dimly lit and slightly eerie space. The moment she steps inside, something strange happens. Her phone's flashlight flickers and dies, and then the phone itself suddenly shuts off for no apparent reason. The abrupt darkness unnerves her, and for a moment, a wave of fear washes over her. Clutching her bag a little tighter, she cautiously moves deeper into the basement. As she inches forward, her eyes are drawn to something unusual, a large, ornate mirror standing against the far wall. Its surface seems to shimmer with a faint, otherworldly glow, unlike anything she's ever seen before. Just as she's about to examine it more closely, something astonishing happens. The reflection shifts, and a young man dressed like a prince appears in the mirror. He looks just as surprised to see Chelsea as she is to see him. For a few tense moments, they stare at each other in disbelief, each trying to process what they're witnessing. Breaking the silence, the prince-like man demands, "What are you doing in my mirror?" Still shaken, Chelsea insists, "I'm in my own house, and you're the one appearing in my mirror." Both are bewildered by the situation. Driven by curiosity, Chelsea walks around to the back of the mirror, only to find nothing unusual, just a plain wall and an ordinary room. It's clear now that this mirror is no ordinary antique. It's acting as a mysterious doorway, showing glimpses into another time. The man, still watching her with suspicion and confusion, asks, "Are you a prisoner? Your clothes look like those worn by prisoners." Chelsea can't help but laugh nervously. "No, these are just my normal clothes," she replies, glancing down at her jeans and t-shirt. Her answer seems to astonish him even more, as if he can't fathom such attire. They begin to introduce themselves. Chelsea learns that the young man is not just any stranger. He's Charles Grayson, a noble from the royal family of that era. Intrigued, Chelsea asks him what year it is on his side. He answers, "It's 1799. She, in turn, reveals that she's from the year 2025. Both are awestruck by the mysterious connection that's allowed them to speak through the mirror across centuries. As they tentatively approach the mirror, both reach out and, for a moment, their hands nearly touch. The instant their fingers meet the glass, a strange energy pulses through them, making them both feel something indescribable. An unspoken connection neither can explain. Before they can make sense of it, Charles hears his mother calling for him from somewhere in his world. He apologizes, clearly torn, and quickly disappears from the mirror's surface. Left alone in the basement, Chelsea stands in stunned silence, her mind racing. She finally turns away from the mirror and makes her way back upstairs, forever changed by what she's just experienced. The next morning, Chelsea goes back to the basement, but now the mirror just looks normal. Wanting to understand what's really happening in that room, she visits Quinn, the caretaker. Quinn explains that no gadgets work in that basement. Phones and lights always stop working there. Strange noises are sometimes heard, and electricity simply doesn't function. That's why he avoids going into that room. Back at his place, Chelsea notices a book about time travel on Quinn's shelf and borrows it to read. The book has a lot of information about mysterious doorways like the one she's encountered. Curious, Chelsea calls the author, who tells her that there have been other reports of such doorways where electricity doesn't work. The author also explains that these portals are connected to the phases of the moon. On full moon or new moon nights, the energy becomes strong and the doorway can open. With the next full moon just 2 days away, Chelsea realizes the portal might open again tonight. So that evening, she gets ready and heads down to the basement. This time, Charles is already there, waiting for her. The two of them start talking, and Chelsea tells Charles just how different her world is. Almost all diseases now have cures, and airplanes allow people to travel anywhere in the world. Charles is fascinated and admits he'd love to see the future for himself. But Chelsea warns him that if he comes over, it could change history in unpredictable ways and affect both of their lives. During their conversation, Charles starts eating cookies and offers some to Chelsea through the mirror doorway. She enjoys them at first, but suddenly she starts struggling to breathe. There are nuts in the cookies, and she has a severe nut allergy. As Chelsea begins to panic, Charles becomes terrified and, without thinking, leaps through the mirror into her world to help her. Chelsea manages to tell Charles that her EpiPen is in her bag in the kitchen. Charles rushes upstairs, finds the bag, and brings it to her. With trembling hands, Chelsea injects herself with the EpiPen, and soon the allergic reaction starts to subside, though she remains weak. Seeing that she's still not completely well, Charles decides to stay with her. Exhausted, they both end up falling asleep together right there in the basement. The next day, Chelsea wakes up feeling much better, her strength fully restored. But when she and Charles go to check the basement, they find that the mirror's doorway has closed. The portal between their worlds is now sealed. According to what Chelsea learned from the book, it will only reopen in another 15 days, at the next full moon. In the meantime, Charles finds himself both thrilled and overwhelmed by the modern world he's now a part of. Everything around him is astonishing. The sights, the technology, the noise, and the sheer speed of life. With nowhere else to go, Charles begins living in the castle with Chelsea. The two spend their days sharing stories. Charles tells Chelsea about his past, his family, and the life he left behind in the 18th century, while Chelsea introduces him to all the wonders and quirks of 2025. Slowly, a bond grows between them. They start to care for each other, their conversations turning from curiosity to genuine affection. One day, Chelsea decides to look up Charles Grayson on Wikipedia, searching for any mention of him in history. To her shock and heartbreak, she discovers a grim fact. Just weeks after the date Charles left his own time, a great fire broke out in a neighboring state, leading to his untimely death. The revelation devastates her, especially when she finds a memorial stone for Charles in the grounds behind the castle. The reality of his fate weighs heavily on her, but she decides not to tell Charles what she's discovered, not wanting to burden him with knowledge that could haunt him or change his choices. The next day, Chelsea has to go out for work, leaving Charles alone in the castle. That's when the bank employee arrives, bringing a prospective buyer to tour the property. Panicking, Charles hides, but in the confusion, he bumps into Quinn, the caretaker. Quinn quickly puts two and two together, realizing that Chelsea has been hiding her friend in the castle. Instead of causing trouble, Quinn decides to help. He takes Charles back to his own house, away from prying eyes, and the two get to talking. Curious and eager to explore, Quinn eventually takes Charles out into the city for lunch. It's Charles's first time experiencing modern food, burgers, fries, and all the little comforts of 21st century life. The experience delights him. As the day goes on, Charles finds himself slowly falling in love with this strange, fast-paced, and vibrant new world, even as he remains a man out of time, tethered to a fate that neither he nor Chelsea can easily escape. That evening, Chelsea comes home and gets a call from the buyer who wants to purchase the castle. He says he's ready to make the deal and will send the papers for her to sign next week. Hearing this makes Chelsea really upset. She's now in love with Charles, and without the castle and the magic mirror, they'll never be able to see each other again. Charles also overhears part of the conversation and finds out that the buyer actually wants to tear down the castle. He tells Chelsea about it, saying he can't stand the thought of losing his family home and asks her to help save it. The next day, Chelsea and Charles try everything they can. First, they go to a shopping center so Chelsea can get him some modern clothes. Then they visit the city center and talk to the local officials, asking if the castle can be protected as a historic property since it's over 200 years old. But the officials say there are already many older buildings around, so not every old house can be saved. Since the castle belongs to the bank, only the bank can decide what happens to it. Charles feels sad, but there's nothing more they can do. That evening, as they sit and talk, he thanks Chelsea for all her help and tells her about another castle nearby where he was born. He invites her to go there with him, hoping it might make her feel a little better. Chelsea suddenly realizes that this is the same house where, according to history, a fire will break out in 1799, and Charles is supposed to die. Finally, she tells Charles the truth and even shows him the memorial stone with his name on it. Charles is shocked at first, but then he says, "I don't think I'm actually going to die. Look, I'm still alive now. Maybe on that night, I somehow came to the future and started living here. so everyone just assumed I died in the fire. He tries to comfort Chelsea, reassuring her that things might not be as hopeless as they seem. Charles has started to love the modern world and wants to stay here, but Chelsea knows this isn't her real home. Her life is in America, and she only came here to inspect and sell the castle. Plus, if Charles stays in this time forever, what would he do? He would have no home, no money, and no identity in this world. So after a lot of talking, they both decide that it's best for them to return to their own times and lives. Still, Chelsea doesn't want to give up on saving the castle, so she begs her boss not to sell it. Unfortunately, her boss refuses to help. The days pass quickly, and soon the 15 days are almost over, meaning the portal in the mirror will open again, and Charles will have to leave. Knowing their time together is running out, Charles arranges a special date for them. They dance, eat together, and finally confess their love for each other, cherishing their last moments together. The next day, Charles meets Quinn, and feeling low, confides in him that he doesn't want to lose his home. Hearing this, Quinn finally realizes that Charles isn't just any stranger. He's the very same prince who lived in this castle 200 years ago and somehow arrived here through the magic mirror. The two start talking, and Charles shares that he wants to help Chelsea to make sure she has a good life. He wishes he could leave the house in her name so she could sell it if she ever needed money. Later, while at home, Charles notices an ad in a magazine for a bank called Greyfield, which has been in business for 300 years. The ad sparks an idea. Soon, evening falls and the night of the full moon arrives. The portal is about to open again, and this might be his last chance to see Chelsea. Charles gets ready, kisses Chelsea, and though she pleads for him to stay, he insists he must go, but promises to return soon. He steps through the mirror, leaving Chelsea heartbroken. Over the next 15 days, anything could happen. The house might be sold, the mirror could be broken, and the buyer is already preparing the papers. In fact, Chelsea herself wants to buy the house now, since she's come to love it, but she doesn't have enough money. Just as she's about to sign the approval papers, there's a sudden knock at the door. An elderly man appears, introducing himself as an employee of Greyfield Bank, the same bank Charles saw in the magazine. He explains that back in 1999, Charles visited the bank and left a letter for Chelsea. The man gives Chelsea the letter, in which Charles writes that he wants to give her a good life and has left her a small fortune. With this money, she can buy the house or fix it up and sell it. The choice is hers. He also writes, "I hope to return soon." The banker further explains that in 1999, Charles opened an account in Chelsea's name and deposited £1,000. Following his instructions, the bank invested this money over the years, and today the account has grown to a staggering $300 million, all for Chelsea. The banker is amazed and asks how a man from 220 years ago could have known a woman named Chelsea would be here at this exact time. Chelsea, just as baffled, says she doesn't know either. With this unexpected fortune, Chelsea immediately buys the house to preserve it in memory of Charles. 15 days pass, and finally the mirror portal opens once again. But Charles does not return, and Chelsea grows worried. That night, she goes to bed feeling heartbroken. The next morning, suddenly, someone enters the house. At first, Chelsea thinks it's an intruder and goes to confront them. But to her shock and relief, it's Charles. She bursts into tears, telling him she feared he died in the fire. Charles explains that in his time, it takes a week to travel to London, and he had just returned from opening the bank account in her name so she could receive the money. Chelsea happily tells him she received the money and has bought the house. Now, with the house saved and their love stronger than ever, Charles and Chelsea can finally be together. And that's how the movie ends. Friends, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye.